Welcome to TOMMO'S Race CHINWAG, your favourite Formula 1 podcast produced by a British biased bloke with a massive Swede full of very questionable wheel knowledge. Broadcast live on YouTube and after the fact on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We have a good old natter about each and every Grand Prix of the season. My name's Tommo, let's talk about it. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Tommo and welcome to my 2025 British Grand Prix pre-race CHINWAG. Welcome everyone live here on YouTube. Sam, Christopher, IK, Max, Daniel, Shabby, Sam, Onska, Jason, Christopher, and the rest of you watching live, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. We got to talk about Silverstone, haven't we? Cracking on round number 12 of the 2025 Formula 1 season. It's a day late as well. Not a dollar short, as Martin Brundle would say. Usually I do these on Wednesday. Today is Thursday. But yesterday I was stacked. I'm not going to give too much away, but I will say I've ticked off another F1 driver on the list of content. So we'll see that coming out later in the year, not on this channel. That's all you're getting. That's all you're getting. But thank you all for joining me. Appreciate you all taking the time. Let's get into it, shall we? Let's not faff about. Pre-race CHINWAG, round 12, Silverstone, banger venue, got to say, not just because of the British bias, which is inherent, that comes with this weekend. Come on. Even if you firmly believe that I am completely engrossed with my British biasness, you cannot deny that Silverstone is a banger. Okay, it tests your car in every way possible. Plenty of high speed, plenty of low speed, plenty of medium speed corners. It's undulating, the weather's a bit crazy. We'll talk about last year as well. The weather certainly played its part in the race. I can't wait for this one. I'm well excited for it. Not going this year. I've been fortunate. I've been Silverstone a few times. Didn't actually go last year either. But from a content point of view, it's cool. I can do my post-race CHINWAG on the Sunday after the race. So happy days, all right? That's the benefit. Traffic getting in and out of Silverstone is a nightmare. So to anyone going this weekend, just have something prepared for the queues, okay? Have something prepared because you're waiting around quite a lot to get in and out. I mean, you'd think they'd have improved the facilities by this point, to be honest, to make it a little bit easier to get. You know what would be great for Silverstone? Actually, a little train. If you could park up somewhere, massive car park, little train, you can shuttle in and out, lovely jubbly. That would make things a lot easier at Silverstone. And, okay, maybe money, problem. Okay, but I mean, I don't know. That F1's in an amazing place at the minute. I think they could subsidise something, if you ask me, an F1. Just make the train look like a big F1 car or something. I think that's a sound idea, in my opinion. But anyway, I'm buzzing. This will also make 50% of the season complete once we finish the British Grand Prix, which means my video for next week will be mid-season reports, ranking all of the drivers from worst to best, trying to remember. I'll definitely have to sit down, maybe on Monday, and just rewatch all of the highlights, all of the race, qualifying highlights as well, of every single race, just to fully refresh my mind so that I'm kind of trying not to be too recency biased, you know, because it's easy to forget about what happened, you know, Australia, China, Saudi, those races feel a very long time ago. We've had Saudi this year, haven't we? Or they remember. Bahrain. I know, we definitely had Bahrain. So let's get into the meat and bones of it around Silverstone, Toaster, not Towchester. I used to think it was pronounced Towchester. The town that Silverstone's technically in. Yeah, it was race 5. Thank you, David. Appreciate that. In the United Kingdom, 5.89 kilometres. Give it a reset if you're having issues with the stream. Of course, I'm having issues with the stream. Again, I've tried to speak to my ISP and it's not helped. Yeah, so Silverstone, banger. Love the circuit. Plenty of laps. We might be getting some rain on Saturday for qualifying, which would be interesting. Could spice up the grid for the race on Sunday. Only 20 degrees highs. This is according to Google weather. So believe it when you see it. Look, we're doing this on a Thursday instead of a Wednesday. So we're a bit closer to the race. So this should be a little bit more accurate. So we might get a bit of rain and then it will calm down in the race. Fingers crossed. Hopefully that's the way it goes this time out. So, honestly, this internet is actually doing my head in. This is actually doing... this never used to be a problem on the streams. This never used to be a problem with the internet. But here we are. It is a thing now. So let's In terms of what do we think, like corner wise? Any that stand out? Because again, I'm terrible at corner names. Corner names never stick in my mind. Okay, like Maggots and Beckett's. I know that's it. It is what it is. I don't know what it is. They just never stick in my mind. I don't understand. It just doesn't seem to work for me. Um, so yeah, Maggots and Beckett's is cool. Obviously, you get run down to. I think I like the Wellington Straight. I know it's the new addition to Silverstone. It's not the old kind of part. Cops is cool. I like Cops, but I like the run into kind of down the Welly Straight, turn 6, 7, 8. That's kind of probably my favourite bit. We got the obviously 2021 Max and Lewis. We got the kind of bit of wheel banging going into that section. Obviously, they had the big crash at turn 9, but that was a vibe. That was a vibe. I got a lot of love for Silverstone. I got a lot of love for the track. It's going to be a good weekend. The weather's going to be a little bit unpredictable, but it's going to be a bit cooler as well, which is interesting, right? It's a bit cooler. It's a bit lower temperatures that brings certain teams into the mix that might not have been in the mix in Austria. I'm looking at you, Mercedes. I'm looking at you. So what about last time? Well, Lewis Hamilton won the Grand Prix. He hadn't won a race for Mercedes all ground effect era up until this point, the 2024 British Grand Prix. A crazy race, a hectic race. Rain fell midway through. Super exciting. And even just watching the highlights back before I did the stream, like it was that, wow, that race was actually unbelievable. So good. George Russell retired. His car broke down. Lando, Oscar were in amongst it. Max was up there. He had a bit of damage early doors, which didn't help his race, but he still managed to find a way to be competitive, which is what Max does. And yeah, Lewis took the win. He was quicker than George, even regardless of George's DNF. Lewis was seemingly the quicker Mercedes, but it was weird. There was times where, you know, the Mercedes looked quicker than the McLarens in the changeable conditions. Then it flipped. It was strange, but in a very exciting, good way. You know, very unpredictable. And unfortunately, the Ferraris weren't really a factor in the race, although I reckon they will be this time out. I've got a better feeling about Ferrari this time than maybe in this race last year. But yeah, Lewis won last time out. Big vibes, got to say. You could tell like he probably didn't think, you know, he was going to win a race again in a Mercedes suit, given how badly the tenure had gone. So for him to do it at his home Grand Prix as well, pretty cool. Pretty cool. So hopefully he can do something. Hopefully Ferrari can give him something, because I feel like around Silverstone, with the crowds, with the vibe, how successful he's been around Silverstone. He's won, 8 times, isn't it? Something like that. It's a lot. He's got an amazing record at Silverstone. And he will just find that extra little bit. Because you could argue, okay, maybe, you know, 40-year-old Lewis Hamilton, is he at his prime? Perhaps not. But I reckon if you're ever going to see a prime Lewis Hamilton right now, in this generation of Lewis Hamilton, in his 40s and onwards, Silverstone's going to bring it out of him, you know what I mean? Oh, is it 9 wins? Jeez. Wow. 9 wins. Lewis Hamilton. Crazy. So, let's reflect on the quali head-to-heads, first of all, for going into this weekend. Okay, so I've been keeping track of them as the season has gone. We've had 13 qualifying sessions, including a couple of sprint qualies as well, of a 30 in total. And these are the average gaps. The closest, Ocon to Behrman, half a tenth. Hockenberg Bortoletto also about half a tenth. And then the biggest, of course, Max ahead of Yuki by almost 7 tenths, 0.686 of a second. Again, Gasly, Colapinto, that one's probably going to move around a bit because there's less races looking at it. But all in all, I think, yeah, this is giving us a good judgment of mid-season. And after this Grand Prix, we'll have, the first 12. I might kind of, I'll snapshot the first 12. It'll be interesting to kind of snapshot the second 12 races of the year, the quali head-to-heads, and see how they compare. Because, are you going to get drivers like, for example, Antonelli, over 3 tenths deficit to George Russell? I expect that to be a smaller number for the second half of the season. And generally, the rookies across the board, I think Behrman's holding himself very well. Bortoletto is holding himself very well. Hadjar's doing a great job. Obviously, relative to Lawson, who's kind of a rookie himself. But, yeah, there's some open room for this to change. Even like Sainz, Hamilton, there's a lot of drivers in new teams here. So, I think 12 races is a sample size that is too small to really make broad assessments of drivers. So we'll see. We'll see how this one changes over the course of the season. So then driver standings, quick reflection. Piastri 15 points ahead of Lando. Norris. This one feels big. This weekend for Lando, for Oscar, both for different reasons, feels huge because, Lando's come off the back of a weekend where I think, in my opinion, Lando was the quicker of the two McLarens across the whole weekend. Practice sessions, qualifying, even in the race, yes, Piastri was, right there, but he had DRS. So I think if the roles were reversed, Lando would have been right behind Oscar and doing the same to Oscar than what Oscar was doing to Lando, if you know what I mean. So I think and when they did pit and that gap opened up, Oscar wasn't really able to reel Lando in any meaningful way, apart from when they started to hit traffic. So I think Lando was the quicker driver last weekend. Oscar needs to make sure that Lando isn't the quicker driver this weekend, and also at home soil, right? Because I think Lando beating Oscar this weekend, winning ideally from his point of view, of course, but beating Oscar this weekend convincingly is a great momentum thing for Lando. But similarly, if Oscar can come in and upset things in front of Lando's home crowd and, outperform Lando over the whole weekend, qualifying will be huge, I think, psychologically, even though it won't make much of a difference off the line. I think this is a very, very big weekend for the McLaren boys. So I'm excited. I'm buzzing. I'm buzzing for this one. In terms of other positions, obviously Colapinto's still pointless so far this year. Not got massive hopes for Alpine on this front. The Aston Martin boys both on 14 points. That car's looked better. They've definitely made a step forward. Williams have had a few difficult weekends. I was at a Williams event last night, and I think James and Alex were saying, they're much more. They're confident that the points haven't reflected the performance over the last few Grand Prix. There's been some errors. There's been some things that have gotten in the way. But the fundamental car, like, Alex could have actually beaten George in Austria. Like, he was about there on pace. The Mercedes was struggling so much. And if he hadn't have had his own problem, Alex, that had to retire the car, he could have been fighting for P5, which is pretty crazy. When you think of where Williams have come from. And maybe George should never have left Williams. Maybe. Which is a subject in itself entirely. Constructor standings, not much of interest at the top because McLaren have just, 207 points clear of Ferrari. But then, that battle for P6 is huge. Because so, day before yesterday, I was at Haas. And really cool video potentially coming in the future at some point. I'm not going to give a timeline. But it was really cool to see the factory, see how small their operation is relative to the other teams that I've been fortunate enough to visit. You can make those kind of direct comparisons, right? And Haas are bringing upgrades this weekend. And they're very much kind of like, because this fight for sixth is so close, they are kind of incentivized to keep pushing upgrades, which is going to affect 26. But especially for a team like Haas, if we're saying a rough estimate is like 12, we don't know exactly, but maybe 12 million per position, dollars, pounds, I'm not really sure what it is, but you hear different things from different sources. There's not a consistent thing. But Racing Bulls 36, Haas 29, Aston 28, Sauber 26. So 4 teams split by 10 points. And if Alpine pull their finger out, they could be up there as well. Like 12 million per position. I mean, what you're talking, the difference between P10 and P9 is 12, 24, 36, 48, 60 mil. 60 bags of prize money. To these teams, huge. That's half the cost cap pretty much. It's crazy. So it's very cool, very interesting. I think there is a lot to be said for that. I do think, I don't know how, but I'd love the sport to maybe try and do a better job of really showcasing that fight. And I know it's difficult, but I think to football, for example, where obviously the fight for Premier League title is big, fight for Champions League spots is big, just European spots in general is big. Then you have the kind of midfield of football, 8th down to 16th, where it doesn't really matter where you finish. And then you have the relegation battle as well, which is big and important. And obviously we don't have this in Formula One, but if there was some way of the sport, I don't know, just kind of highlighting that a bit more, I think that could be interesting. It's a unique sport, F1, where every team is playing together at the same time. Only 24 weekends a year. There's 24 events and that's it. Plus sprints, of course. But there's something to be seen. And that's so hard to call. That's so hard to call how that bottom, even that bottom 10, like bottom 10, there's only 10. That bottom 5 entirely is very hard. Maybe Williams keep tripping up. I don't think it's like they do have a good car at Williams. They will continue to get points this year. But yeah, we'll see. Oh yeah, mate, Diego Jota, that's awful. What happened, by the way? Rest in peace to him, man. Shocking. Okay, so let's go. We've gone through all of that. Full screen chat. What we got to say? What do you want to talk about? We've got some news to get into. I've got some news segments that we're going to kind of go through. Actually, I've got a couple of super chats as well. I'll get into first. Thank you. Oh, here we go. Thank you, Regav, for the super chat. Tom, a couple of things about your last video. Use Carlos as an example as a support act. He's never been a support act. Future World Driver Championship. And this is not me criticising you, just my viewpoint. I would say, I think over the course of their time as teammates, Carlos was the support act to Charles. Don't get me wrong. Carlos can win a race. Carlos can out-qualify Charles. Absolutely. But over the totality of their time together, Charles consistently had the measure of Carlos in both points, in qualifying, average delta, head-to-head and all that. And we had a lot of data because they spent a lot of seasons as teammates. So for me, I think it's fair to call Carlos a support act relative to Charles. But I would say, at a team like Williams, I've not seen Albon put it on pole. I've not seen Albon win races. I think Carlos can lead that team. There is definitely a viable future where Carlos Sainz leads that team. And I believe he can lead a team, absolutely. But I just think in the context of their time as Ferrari teammates, he was the support act. Like each season, and when you average it in totality, Charles was always the quicker driver. Not by much, but always the quicker driver. And sure, like I think, first year didn't Sainz outscore Charles? I can't even remember. But I think the numbers kind of speak for themselves. It was very close, but Charles is just that extra little step, I think, above Carlos Sainz. That's my opinion. And that's yours, Regav. And that's all good. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. And thank you, Lucas, as well. What do you make of the Bottas for Colapinto rumours? Oh, yes. Yes, I didn't create a graphic for that one. I should have done, actually, because that's pretty interesting. Why am I so pink? Good question. Ask my DNA, I guess. Bottas, Colapinto. Yeah, I don't know. I think Briatore is just ball in a china shop is what kind of comes to mind. I don't know. It feels counterintuitive to just keep swapping up drivers. Bottas will jump in if he jumps into an Alpine, obviously with a lot more experience behind him. And he'll have raced different engines. He'd have obviously raced Mercedes engines at Williams and Mercedes. He raced a Ferrari engine at Sauber. And then he'd be racing a Renault engine at Alpine, which would take some adaptation in the same way that Sainz is taking some adapting to the Williams. I would say that Bottas would be fine. Look, this is a decision for the exact same reason why Haas are bringing upgrades this weekend. Because these positions, and we know how financially incentivized Flavio Briatore is, if each position is 12 million and he feels like bringing in Bottas will get us an extra couple of positions in the Constructors' Championship, then all of a sudden you're looking at that's a 24 million extra payday. So I think that logically Bottas would be an improvement, yes. However, Colapinto has a lot of potential. We've seen him deliver that potential at times, in moments, and in the same way that pretty much all the rookies, Antonelli's had his fair share of mistakes. Behrman's had his fair share of mistakes. Hadjar one mistake at the start of the year, a big mistake, but bounced back very well. Lawson's had mistakes in him. Bortoletto's made mistakes. Like, you have to allow a rookie to have a rookie season, but see enough in them to be like, cool, you're not going to be the final complete product, but there is enough there. And I think, has Colapinto shown enough in the Alpine to show that I don't think he's been any better than Doohan. I think maybe he's been a little bit worse than Doohan, but given that he had no preseason testing, given that Doohan had years of TPC running at Alpine, I would probably say that actually I think Colapinto's got a higher ceiling than Doohan, because he's been way less prepared. He's just been chucked into this car, and he's not done a horrific job relative to Gasly. Like, it's not been great, sure, but given the lack of preparation, it's not been a horrific job. Even like when he was at Williams, like, he got an FP1. He'd been in the sim. He was, James Vowles promoted him over Logan Sargent for a reason, and was vindicated for that reason. I think Colapinto, and I've said this about, I thought they should have given Lawson more time at Red Bull. But now you've made the decision to go with Yuki. You need to stick by it. And I feel the same about Alpine. You've made that decision now to go with Franco. You stick by it. You don't just chuck Bottas in. And for Valtteri, I don't know if that is a smart move. I think Cadillac is probably the smart move for him. I don't know. I'm not sure. If you let's do a poll. Let's do a poll. Who should Bottas choose? This is assuming he's got like a straight up option between these two. And look, Gladiator, I agree that Jack deserved the whole year. Absolutely. I think you need to give a new driver a minimum of 12 months. I think, Williams gave Logan 18 months, basically, like a year and a half. And some people might say, oh, that was too long. They wasted so much time with him. Perhaps. But I think you have to give a fair crack of the whip. You look at Logan's junior career. I wrote Colapinto instead of... Right. Cadillac and Colapinto start with the same letter. You know what I mean, all right? Who should Bottas choose? Alpine or Colapinto? Oh, dearie me. Wow, that's okay, fine. When you're live, you can't edit these things out. You just got to go with the flow. I think Bottas has, there's a decision there to be made. I do think Jack should have got... For me, you got to give a rookie 12 months. You got to give him a full season, and then You can't say, if you're Alpine, that Jack couldn't have, been very close to Pierre by the end of the year. You can't say, okay, maybe Liam Lawson would never have been close to Max because it's Max and it's Red Bull and that's a unique situation. But you can't say for sure that Liam wouldn't have improved and got closer to Max and respectfully close to Max by the end of the year, given the context of the seat, blah, blah, blah. You can't say that for certainty after 2 races. You can't say that for, I've made my point. But 77% of you think Bottas should choose Colapinto over Alpine. Cadillac Pinto over Alpine. And yeah, I think, even though Alpine have got a Mercedes engine, granted, valid, I think Alonso is the one who should be taking that gamble, if anything. Because I worry that this Honda engine in this Aston Martin is not going to cook. Because again, Red Bull have so many of the ex-Honda people in their powertrain division. So it is what it is, right? I'm just going to close that poll so that there's no need to carry it on. Ragav, thank you again for the super chat, Ragav. Charles was and is Ferrari's golden boy. Beating that guy 40% of the time is impressive in my opinion. I'm not saying it's not impressive, Ragav. Absolutely. But I'm still saying over the course of their tenure as teammates, Carlos was the support act. That's just how the results went. And Carlos, again, had his moments, absolutely, where he was quicker than Charles. Don't get me wrong. Bottas was quicker than... Bottas out-qualified Lewis 30% of the time when they were teammates at Mercedes over that 5 years, whatever it was. That's a significant number. That is not insignificant, but of course Bottas was the support act. I think Lewis was quicker than Bottas in races relative to Charles being quicker than Carlos in races. I think they were actually pretty close a lot of the time. But when you again average out across a long period, I think Charles was definitely the main man. Maybe that's because Ferrari were, you're our golden boy, Charles. But if that's the situation, that's the situation. You know what I mean? We disconnect, which is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. We reconnected. Lovely jubbly. Yeah, I think that... I think that it's a bit chaos, isn't it, Alpine? That they're kind of trying things out, but they're just... I don't know if that's Briatore's way to just be super like, oh, we'll try you out. Oh, no, 2 races. No, not good enough. We'll try you out. Bum, 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 bum. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't seem like and not score any points. My God, this internet, bro. I cannot deal with this. This is actually doing my nutting. Like, it keeps disconnecting. It's like a PowerPoint presentation. So I think you've got to look at average finishing position. You've got to look at qualifying delta rather than points. Points are not especially when you're looking at drivers in teams towards the back. You can't attribute performance to points because there's often not an amazing correlation. You can have one super lucky result and get loads of points and then never score again for the rest of the season and finish ahead of your teammate who's consistently P11. Like, that can happen. So that's what I'll say of that. How am I? I'm getting redder and redder because by the end of this stream, I'm going to be a tomato and I'm going to headbutt my router. So, oh, dearie me. Right, okay, let's get back to the CHINWAG and let's get back to the bangers and clangers predictions for this weekend's 2025 British Grand Prix. Starting with race winner. Who's going to sit atop that podium with the national anthem of their respective nation playing in front of the British crowd? Now, a decent part of me would love Max to win this race. The chorus of boos as he gets out and gives one of them. We need more of that behaviour in F1. I'm all for it because that's exciting. That's sport. And you're always going to get people who just are toxic online. But people are toxic online anyway. So, unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about that. I'd love to say Bortoleto. Bortoleto to win this Grand Prix would be amazing. Many of you are saying Bortoleto in the live chat. But my pick is George Russell. George Russell is going to win the 2025 British Grand Prix. You heard it here first. Now, a couple of things. First of all, the temps. Highs of 20, lows of 14. It's going to be a lot cooler than Austria. And we saw in Canada when those temperatures are a bit more manageable, because it wasn't exactly cold. It wasn't cold in Canada, far from it. The Mercedes can come alive. Now, George put it on pole last time out, right? Didn't he? I'm pretty sure he put it on pole. 24 British Grand Prix. I'm sure George put it on pole. Yeah, he did. Yeah. Like a tenth and a half, basically, ahead of Lewis. So I think George can deliver a pole lap. I think he can do what he did in Canada at his home Grand Prix. With all of the noise in the background around his future as well, I think this is the time that George... Because I think he thrives off the pressure, actually. I think he's the kind of driver, he's the kind of character, personality, where when he feels like things are against him, it gets out a really good side of George. And I think he's got through his kind of crashy phase. I think he's set himself up as a incredible racing driver. Like, arguably... it depends how many points you want to take off of Max for what happened in Spain. But up there for driver of the year for this first half of the year. Absolutely. Of course he has been. So I think George is going to win it. I think the Mercedes is going to be more at home around this circuit in these temperatures. And I think he's got it in him to get it done. Pressure is for tyres, Avkid. Absolutely. So I'm going George Russell race win. But what about you? Well, 1,274 of you voted. Thank you very much for voting in the poll. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you will see the community post where I share the polls. Also on my Instagram at TOMMO'McCluskey as well, and Twitter, TOMMO'McCluskey. I share the polls all over the gaff. Okay, so you can't miss. If you're missing them, it's your own fault. Okay, it's your own fault. 1,274 of you voted, and your race winner for the 2024 British Grand Prix prediction is Lando Norris. 38% of the vote. 31% for Oscar Piastri, 12% for Lewis Hamilton, and 9% for George Russell. We are correct. You say George Williams. We are correct. Okay, we'll see. We will see. Look, Lando's got a car underneath him that's incredibly quick. He's coming off the back of a really strong weekend in Austria, where he was, again, for me, just quicker than Oscar across the board. We know he's got it in him. We know he's got it in him to put it on pole as well. I don't hate this prediction. I do not hate it. I could absolutely see Lando Norris winning. And if he does win, if he wins, leads Oscar Piastri home, it's 15 points the gap now. That would go down to 8. And if Oscar finishes a bit lower, it could even be a smaller gap than that. So definitely, look, I think it was always a question of... It wasn't always a question. I think I understood why a lot of people kind of wrote off Lando so early on in the season. But I think that almost now... In some ways, if the momentum shifts towards Oscar and the focus has been kind of now, all right, Oscar's just going to get it done. In some ways, that takes a little bit of the weight of leading the championship off of Lando. And we're always hoping, these mistakes that he's made, does he learn from them? That's the thing. You only learn when you make mistakes. You don't learn from the wins, really. So I want to see a championship that goes the distance. Out of Oscar and Lando, I like them both pretty equally as characters. Like, I don't really care who wins. I'd love to see... I think Charles Leclerc deserves the championship more than anyone who hasn't won one yet. I would say that. So if Charles and Ferrari can find something, then amazing. Like, I would say I'd like to see Charles win it ahead of Lando and Oscar. But at them two, I just want to see it go the distance. I want to see it come down to Abu Dhabi, and fingers crossed, it goes bar for bar the whole way. If he gets pole, he wins. We'll see. Banger drive Ollie Bearman for me. British bias, of course. But again, has to bring in some pretty significant upgrades. I believe it is floor, side pod, wing mirrors. Can't remember if there's anything else. Definitely those 3. There might be some more bits coming as well. So yeah, has to bring in some pretty significant changes to the car. And I think that Ollie's going to do bits on his home Grand Prix. What can I say? I think in the same way that Lewis demonstrates that home advantage is a real thing. It can be a blessing and a curse, of course. And I think some drivers maybe feel more intimidated by a home Grand Prix than others. And I think, for Kimi Antonelli, right, so young, all the pressure and expectation being at Imola, he had a very poor weekend, and definitely cited some of that as to a contributing factor as to why these guys are very young. But I think Ollie's got that little bit more experience under his helmet now. Certainly relative to Kimi, and I see him putting in a decent performance this weekend. So I'm going Ollie Bearman. The bias is real. Absolutely. Lock it in. Your banger driver... Wait, what have I done there? Oh yeah, there we go. Your banger driver is Lewis Hamilton. 37% of the vote. Convincing banger driver as well. And again... This is the kind of weekend, I say that. This is the kind of weekend where Lewis can perform at his prime. The thing is, Charles Leclerc is a demon around Silverstone as well. So that's a tough call. Because Charles really likes Silverstone. So out of the Ferrari boys, I think you're splitting hairs. I couldn't really put anything between them, to be honest. But all Brits in the top 4, I know, right? Russell, Albon, Behrman as well. Round it out. I mean, Albon's, you know, he's British. He's British and Thai. 50-50. Best of both worlds. 10% Russell, 6% Albon, 6% Behrman for the banger drive votes. So the British bias is real. What can I say? It's the British bias Grand Prix. Okay, we're all here. You got to lean into. There's one of 24 weekends where you just lean into it, and fine. Shameless. Be shameless in your bias. Okay, be shameless. But yeah, Lewis convincingly takes the banger drive vote with 37%. Clanger drive, I've gone Oscar. Now, I've gone Oscar for a reason, because I think this goes one or two ways. Either Oscar beats Lando in his own backyard, opens up that championship gap, gives one of them to the crowd. He wouldn't do that, because he's way too chill a guy to do that. Or Lando smokes him quicker all weekend, outqualifies him, and Oscar, the pressure of the moment kind of gets to him a bit, because he's very cool on the outside, but there's always going to be emotions in there. It goes one way or the other, and I'm predicting it goes the latter. We'll see. And also, he's not British, which is the most important thing. Your clanger drivers, Franco Colapinto, 18% of the vote, 16% for Yuki Tsunoda, 12% for Lance Stroll, 9% for Lando Norris. So, Matt, Lando won in Australia, Oscar wins in the UK. We'll see about that, son. We'll see about that. You've gone Franco, which has been... You've given Franco a lot of... You just keep going for Franco for clanger. Which, I get it, the Alpine's not going to be great around here, because this is a circuit that challenges your car in every way, and that Alpine PU disadvantage is going to hurt them around here. And yeah, with the pressure of Briatore breathing down your neck, it's certainly not helping Franco's cause. Unsubscribe. So Clanger Drive, you've gone for Franco Colapinto. My banger team's Haas. Again, the upgrades that they're bringing, they were... Ocon P17 to P10 in Austria was hugely impressive. Anyway, I think I'm hoping, because I think typically when Haas add parts to their car, it does correlate and it does quite well. You got to remember, they're the super lean team. They've got 350 members of staff. The next smallest is like 1,000. So they are consistently punching above their weight. They're hyper-focused, Again, efficiency is key. Okamatsu's got a very tight ship run in there. And I think the upgrade... They wouldn't be bringing these many upgrades to this race if they didn't think they were going to add performance straight out the back. So, Haas's payroll after yesterday. I'm British bias. I'm Haas bias. We just keep rounding them off, mate. Just keep lining them up. Watch. Behrman points. It's happening. And then your banger team is McLaren, 22% of the vote. 22% of the vote also to Ferrari, but just a few votes fewer. I'm very interested to see Ferrari actually this weekend, because they were obviously miles off McLaren, but they were still the team, following them home, and it was exceptionally hot in Austria. So and that's where the McLaren tyre management is exceptionally advantageous. It pays extra dividends when it's super hot. But when it's of a more reasonable, 20 to 14 degrees, as we're expecting it on Sunday, I think that McLaren advantage isn't going to be so significant, so big. And we've seen at other Grand Prix, where those temps are a bit lower, the McLaren isn't necessarily we're super dominant like they were in Austria. They will be super, if it's still like this in Qatar, for example, later in the year, and the pecking order is still relative, the McLarens will be quickest because it's so hot there and they can manage their tyres. So yeah, Ferrari's a very interesting one for this weekend. I really don't know where to put Ferrari. I'd love to predict one of them to win, but I'm not going to go that far. 20% of you gone Mercedes. Again, cooler temperatures, that could check out, definitely. 13% Williams. British bias. The only explanation. Only explanation. And then finally, Clanger team, I've gone Alpine, and you've gone Alpine. Need I say any more? You've gone 36% of you for Alpine, 14% Red Bull. Surely they had the clangingest of clanger weekends last time out in Austria. Surely they can't go back to back. Surely. No, I don't believe it. But stranger things are there. Wasn't there like point scoring streak, like 60 odd races, and they were like 3 races shy of Ferrari's record, I think. There was something about like a point scoring streak that Red Bull had, and they were really close to beating the record, and they didn't. So they've now had to reset to 0, which is a stinker. And there we have it. Bangers and clangers. You've gone Lando to win, Lewis bang, Franco clang, McLaren bang, Alpine clang. And I've gone George win, Ollie bang, Oscar clang, Haas bang, Alpine clang. So we'll see on Sunday evening who wins, who is victorious in the bangers and clangers. What do you make of that? I mean, look, Alpine for clang just feels like a very default. The chance of nothing unlikely happening is in itself unlikely. I say this time and time again. So you've got to chuck in a Oscar Piastri clanger every now and then, just because I could look like a genius on Sunday. You mock me now, I could look like the big brain that my hair suggests, because I need to get a haircut. What do you reckon for Tim Meyer for the FIA Shabby? Yes, I was literally 10 minutes before this stream, I was scrolling through motorsport.com because I was like, oh, is there any bits of news that I've kind of missed out on? And yeah, Tim Meyer, who is a former steward or current steward, I'm not sure, is going to apparently run against MBS for the FIA presidency. Carlos Sainz Sr. was interested, but then was not interested. I mean, I don't really know much about Tim Meyer. Didn't his dad used to be McLaren team principal? Former got sacked. Did he get sacked by MBS? Because that'd be quite funny. Yeah, I don't know anything about Tim Meyer. All I know is that he is someone who is not MBS who's running for it. Now, could he be even worse than MBS? I mean, I guess that's possible. But I don't know. So I'm not going to sit here and profess knowledge to Tim Meyer, who he is and what he could do as an FIA president. So I'm afraid you're going to have to research that one yourself. But I will look into it. So I don't think Susie Wolff was ever officially running. I think there was there rumours that she was interested, or was that just kind of media speculation trying to kind of wish it into existence? Because obviously Susie would be great, and there was that whole court. What was it? Did it go to court where like I can't even remember the details of that. That was just drama, mate. I was not here for it. But obviously she's doing F1 Academy stuff. There is obviously, you know, you can argue conflicts of interest about pretty much, like, people would say, oh, well, Tim Meyer's dad was a McLaren team principal, so conflicts of interest. Like, you have to draw the line somewhere. Having your husband as a team principal of one of the F1 teams is probably a bit too much. But then again, Carlos Sainz Sr., his son is in a seat, and then Sainz put the quote out being like, I was like, oh, it will be fair. And I was expecting Sainz to say he will like resign as my father. You know, if he's going to be FIA team principal, he's going to have to, Sainz. You know, you're going to have to make it done. Because you can't have your son racing, so it's like, there's always going to be conflicts of interest everywhere. I think Susie would be an amazing FIA president, no doubt. But I don't think that's likely to happen. And I also think that you need and this was kind of spoken about with the Sainz Senior stuff, you do need one really good, convincing candidate that everyone can rally around if you're going to go against MBS, instead of having, you know, 3-4 different strong candidates, but then that spreads the vote and MBS, you know, the assertion that he's essentially paying for votes is allegedly going on in terms of, you know, oh, I'm going to give you budget for these, you know, certain places around the world. So then you give me votes, like peak, FIFA levels of corruption, allegedly. Just keep saying that, allegedly. Then they can't take me to prison. But time will tell on that front. Time will tell. Right, let's go into a few little bits of news. We are 47 minutes in, so this has been a long. We've been wagging the old chin for a fair bit. George Russell, Max Verstappen, Mercedes, Red Bull. So yesterday, no, it wasn't yesterday. It was Tuesday evening. There was a tweet article dropped by Sky Sport Italy, basically saying that concrete discussions are going on between Max and Mercedes. Is this for 26? Is this for later than 26? George has acknowledged that there are conversations going on. Martin Brundle has confirmed that George has spoken to other teams. Toto has basically said that we are conversing about the future. So we know conversations are happening. That's quite transparent. Is it a tactic? Is it a negotiating tactic? Is it just that? Is it just hot air? Is it, Mercedes trying to, George trying to get a better, well, I don't think it's George trying to get a better deal, is it? Max trying to, I don't think it's Max trying to do anything. I think it's just Max want to be in the quickest car. And to what extent he has faith in Red Bull, you can understand him questioning that, definitely. With the, the power unit stuff, like no one knows the power unit. There's an assumption, obviously, that Mercedes is going to be the quickest PU. There's an assumption that it's going to be a engine formula. I just don't know. Russell's in a bit of a pickle. It's funny, Crispy, because that's the kind of thing George would say. It was like, oh, I'm in a bit of a pickle, aren't I? I don't know. I think this has caught a lot of people off guard. I think that there is no smoke without fire. I don't know how Toto can, in his interview with, I want to say, Rachel at Sky last week, after George's interview with Karun, how Toto can sit there and say, like, this is not a delay to George's contract, blah, blah, blah. I don't know how he can say those things, knowing the character knowing how long he's known George. For him to say those things and then sign Max for 26 would be so out of pocket, would be insane for him to do that. And I don't think, just judging by that, for me, the words that Toto was saying, I can't remember them word for word, but saying, there's no delay to George's contract, this doesn't affect George signing for 26, blah, 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 like whatever it was exactly he said. That, for me, was enough to be like, right, well, he's going to sign George for 26. And this talk with Max, look, it certainly doesn't demonstrate much faith in your current lineup, who is a lineup for today and the future, with George being so good right now, Kimi having so much potential going forward, and already having got a sprint pole to his name, which is insane in itself. It doesn't give your drivers a lot of faith. But then I guess, these conversations always happen. It is your job as a team principal to analyse all of the options available to you and it to not be personal. But then obviously Toto putting these statements out to the world, as soon as you start saying these things, it kind of does make it personal to a degree. I would be, even after all of this, like, I do not see Max in a Mercedes in 26. I think that it makes sense for Max to stay in a Red Bull in 26 at least, to see the lie of the land. Because, bro, Mercedes could absolutely cock up these technical regs again. They might have the best engine, but you know what? 3 other teams will have that Mercedes engine as well. And McLaren have proven you can beat your supplier. You can. Williams are hoping all the investment, all of the focus, Williams could be a real threat to Mercedes. They could, absolutely, if it hasn't all been just hot air. And who knows with Alpine, they're going to have a Mercedes engine. David Sanchez, the technical team at Enstone, has always delivered a decent car given the power deficit they have. Like there's zero guarantee that the Mercedes car is going to be the best car. The Mercedes engine, that has a lot more credence, but even that is still an assumption. I just think, I don't know. I think Max staying put. Red Bull know Max will get the best out of the package that they give him. Whatever that package is, it won't be a newly designed car. It will be a Wache and the rest of the technical team. And then, maybe the power unit surprises them. Again, a lot of the ex-Honda people are at Red Bull Powertrains, Red Bull Ford. I just think it doesn't make sense to make that decision now. You make it, you stay, you see the lay of the land. If Max wanted to get out his contract as well for 26, that probably cost him a lot more money than getting out for 27. I don't know. I think ultimately, I really just think that it's a lot of smoke, and actually I don't think anything's going to change. But it's very risky from Toto in particular, because all you're doing here essentially is making your drivers feel pretty undervalued. And that's why I made the video I did last week. And I feel the same. But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully not, George, because he definitely deserves a top seat. And him versus Max for a title at the same team would be amazing. Even at different teams would be amazing. But at the same team, oh my gosh. But that's never going to happen. V-Carb have a special edition livery for this weekend with artist Slawn, which is pretty cool. I kind of like it. I mean, it's literally the normal livery, but with graffiti on it. But actually, it looks sick. Like, it's not some half-assed attempt at doing some artistic livery. They, fully lean into it. Full car, graffitied up. Bosh. That's sick. I like that. That's cool. That's how special edition one-off liveries should be. And talking to that, McLaren are back in chrome again. Remember a couple of years back when I did my video of Lando and Oscar was to launch the 2023 chrome McLaren, and they've done it each year since. And for me, this is their best go at it yet. Because I think my main criticism of the chrome McLaren was that they didn't put enough chrome on it, basically. They kind of just half-assed it a bit. And you look back at the Vodafone McLaren, right? The iconic 2008 car, that had plenty of red on it. Not as much papaya as this still has, but this is much closer to the balance of chrome to colour. Back then it was chrome to red, now it's chrome to papaya. And it's not perfect, but it's my favourite version of the chrome McLaren to date. So, bravo McLaren, well done, very good, love it. Best effort yet. Exactly, Nick. Best effort yet. And then also, Arvid Lindblad is in for FP1 this time out in the Red Bull, which is interesting. Very interesting, actually, because it's going to give them data of Arvid driving the Red Bull car, and it will give knowledge is power. We know there's a lot of... It is in the Red Bull, isn't it? By the way, someone just said for Racing Bull Red Bull. I'm pretty sure it is. You've got me second questioning myself now. I'm sure it's Red Bull, isn't it? Yeah, it is Red Bull. It is Red Bull. It's Red Bull. You had me there, Crispy. Lindblad for FP1. I am going to be very interested to see him in that car. Actually, that's what I didn't check, though. Whose car is he going to be in? Is he going to be in Max's or Yuki's? Because surely you put him in Max's, and then you can literally back-to-back him with Sonoda. He's in Sonoda's car. That's a bit of a shame. Is that a bit of a missed opportunity there? Because you've had Yuki and Arvid on the same track at the same time, given the same run plan. That would have been interesting. But either way, they're still going to get very good data on Arvid, which is important because, again, look, regardless, I think this is smoke. I don't think Max is leaving. I think George and Kimi are going to be in that Mercedes next year. That's what I would put money on today. But this does just highlight the fact that, and obviously the result last week in Austria highlights the fact that Red Bull can't rely on Max being there forever. They need to have contingency for the future. He was only ever going to be hanging around till 28 probably anyway, because he wants to go and do Le Mans and 24-hour races and all that. And that also feeds into my theories to like, why would he go Mercedes? Because you're only going to get him for a couple of seasons, if that. And he's probably going to hate these new regulations anyway. So, I don't know. But they need to plan for the future. And Hadjar's been great. Hadjar's been fantastic, in fact. Yuki is a fantastic racing driver. We know this. We know that this car doesn't represent the talent of the drivers jumping into it. It's nuanced. It's difficult. Max only knows that Red Bull car. He's been in it since 2016. Okay, Toro Rosso 2015, technically speaking. And he's grown with the car just as much as the car's grown with him. And so Max is adept to the nuances in a way that other drivers coming in can't be. Now, it is a valid criticism of Red Bull that they haven't been able to build a car that other top drivers can jump in and drive quickly, in the same way that Ferrari, it's never really been a problem with Sainz jumping in. When Vettel moved over from Red Bull, like, they've always been fine. Mercedes, when Bottas jumped in, was outqualified Lewis 30% of the time, wasn't slow. Russell jumping in straight away in Sakir, like, should have won that race. You know what I mean? Like, that is a valid criticism of Red Bull, and they need to make sure that isn't the case, because you have two cars. Like, I'm afraid you have two cars, and you can't rely on Max being there forever. So, am I Lindblad's biggest backer? Am I crispy? I'm just saying what Red Bull gassed this guy up a lot. Like, they believe in this guy, so they must do for a reason. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, we'll see how he does in FP1 this weekend. Right, okay. We're almost at the hour mark. In fact, we've just hit an hour on the recording. Anything else live chat? Anything I haven't touched on? Anything else? What are we saying? Fastest. Paul Aaron in FP1, yes, of course, in the Sauber. It's going to be kind of interesting, actually. I think Paul Aaron's a very, very good driver. I think if it wasn't for Kimi Antonelli, he'd probably still be part of that Mercedes program. Yeah, I think Kimi obviously, captivated a lot of that, and Mercedes haven't, regardless of whether it's Max or George or Kimi, Mercedes don't have to worry about being out of a driver. It's just which of those three makes their two, I guess. Did I see Checo's podcast? I saw a few quotes from Checo's podcast, but I haven't actually listened to it myself. But I'm assuming it was in Spanish, right? So I just have to find like transcriptions. But there was the Checo did. Maybe look into it yourself. I don't want to say quotes that I'm not 100%. I know are true, because I can't remember them. So, British bias Marty is better than Lindblad. A lot of it with Arvid is how young he is, because he is at this level at 17, and I know it's small margins, but I mean Marty he won the sprint, didn't he, in Austria, and he's part of Fernando Alonso's management academy. But his season started strong, didn't it, for Marty? But then it kind of wavered a bit, didn't it? If Russell wins the GP this weekend, will you wear the Mercedes flat cap next video? If Mercedes want to send me the flat cap, I'll wear it. Deal, Mercedes. If you want to send me the flat cap, I'll wear it. All right, I'll get it done. How am I? I'm good, thank you, Raina. I'm good. It's been a very, very busy last 2 days. Very good busy. Very lucky, very privileged to be able to do what I do busy. But it's been very busy. So, it's nice to just do a nice chill stream, just chat with you guys, and just... Internet connections have made it stressful, of course, as always. It seems to be fine now, although it's probably going to now break in a minute. Will I be at the race? I will not be at the race this time out. Now, Checo doesn't have his own podcast. I think he was a guest on someone's podcast, and he said a few things regarding his time at Red Bull. Thank you, Craig. Adjust points for the 11th team in 26 because we'll have 22 cars. Yeah, I don't know what the most. There's definitely an argument that all positions should get points, like an IndyCar. There's pros, there's cons for sure, but I think that overall, like if I was designing F1 from the ground up, I would say that, and I'm just trying to not carry any, oh, it's just changed, so I don't like it mentality into it. Points for every position means that every position has meaning, and fighting for P13, P14, P15, drivers there's more on the line, and it would definitely give a more representative final finishing constructors drivers championship. However, I do think having only the top 10 means that scrap for P10 is extra important, and the win, the buzz from getting that first point by being in P10 is a story in itself. I would also say that sometimes in sport it is nice to have that degree of almost, say a driver who's been miles behind all season, and then the heavens open, you make a crazy strategy choice, and you get on the podium, right? And you score, 12, 15, 18, maybe even win 25 points. Like, that story where you've gone from getting nothing and then you get something, and then that warps the rest of the season in a very unpredictable way. Having that in sport is kind of quite nice sometimes. Should it be that the Drivers' Constructors' Championship is a complete reflection of where everyone finished, basically average finishing position? The lower your average finishing position, the more points you have, which is not the way it is at the moment. I can see why there's resistance to it, but I think if I designed an F1 out the gates today, I probably would give points for every position, not just P11. I kind of went off on a bit of a tangent there, but thank you, Craig, for the super chat. Appreciate it. Anything else? F1 balance of performance. I think the cost cap does a good enough job of that. Although I was listening to Callum Nicholas was doing the Sky Sports pod, and it was interesting. He was talking about how only the top 3 earners are exempt from the cost cap. However, that is now creating a bit of a situation where people in, again, most teams have over 1,000 people in them, and people in those most of those 1,000 people are not earning insane salaries, and it's making it harder for them to get pay rises they deserve and all of that, which I definitely understand how this could happen. It's like, well, look, we can't give you a pay rise because we need to use this money to improve the car and improve the team, and we are a team, and as part of a team, employers can use that against you. You get that in some industries. You get that in like the fashion industry. Like if you want to work for some big fashion brand and they'll pay you like minimum wage because it's a privilege to be here. Like most people would love to be in your position, like for free, let alone paid minimum wage. You should be grateful. And you kind of can see how that could seep in because most of those 1,000 people, their wages are coming out of the cost cap. So I get Callum's point there. I do think that is definitely something. Well, he's saying it is creeping in, and you can definitely see how it could creep in even more. So yeah, that's kind of a shame. Minton, I don't know where Minton's downstairs. So, tell you what, post race CHINWAG, I promise Minton will be on. Okay, so make sure you turn up on Sunday for my 2025 British Grand Prix post-race CHINWAG, okay? Deal? We can shake hands on that. We can shake hands on that. Right, I'm going to wrap here before the internet drops its guts again. So thank you all for joining me. Charlotte, KT, Majik, Crispy, Rivethead, Fives, Costas, Icy Spider, Juicy, Kev, Tommy, Mish, Raina, Halita, Christopher, Daniel, Adrian, Rivethead, Hop Haze, Oscar, Awkward MMA, Avkid, Francesco, Kabir, McFillan, Maglin, Dre, DH, producer DH, Freebird, Martin, Lola, Gladiator, Costas, Dawood, Craig, Ragav, Josu, Ale, and the rest of you. That's a wrap. My name's Tomo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.